Hey folks, how you doing? This is Jim again. Um, I just thought I'd share some information with you, a little bit, couple little tips here. Um, Here's what really spawned this video. I had a client recently who was running a small website. They were doing their own hosting, and it's going all right. They don't get a lot of traffic, so their connection could handle it. But their website is running on kind of an old platform. It's like Server 03 IIS on 10-year-old hardware, and they're thinking, it's about time maybe to virtualize this. 10-year-old hardware and operating systems that are probably just about out of support. You don't want to deal with that. And they've had some issues with people trying to hack the site, and they happen to be a religious organization, and a lot of people don't like that, and they try to do nasty things. But anyway, what they're looking for was maybe to do some kind of virtualization. And as I've shown you in the past, we've already done some work with VirtualBox. Now, aside from ESXi, probably, if you're going to do anything in kind of production mode that isn't going to get a real heavy burden or heavy load, VirtualBox will work for you. You can host it on just about any platform. So, and you've already seen me do some videos about hosting old versions of Windows like 98 and 3.1 and some games on DOSBox, and well, DOSBox is a little different, but in VBox, I call VBox VirtualBox. I've hosted some stuff. Anyway, it's pretty flexible in what you can do with it. So to that end, I said, well, can we make this work? So I did a little test deployment here in my office, and I just thought I'd share that with you. And some of the hang-ups I ran into, and maybe some little tips that'll keep you from having too many headaches. Now, I know there's other videos out there where people have done Z-panels, showed you stuff, but I'm going to show you maybe a little more friendlier version. I'm not quite the Linux geek or guru you find on these days, and I'll try to fill in the blanks there, because sometimes the problem with the open source community is they assume knowledge that isn't necessarily there and point you at resources that make your eyes bleed. So anyway, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go to Z-Panel's page here. And you see here's Z-Panel. It's basically a hosting administration program. And you can see it runs on, Linux and Windows, and it'll even run on Mac, which isn't too surprising considering that Mac here is a lot of this. So a lot of BSD if you can't see the mouse cursor. But when you have these platforms, I tried pretty much all of these except Mac. And to me, trying it on Mac would be like trying it on Windows, which is, I don't know, kind of cheating, and really not something I would consider for a production server. And what I found was that the happiest combination, the one that gave me the least pain, was actually running Z-Panel on top of this, on top of CentOS, which CentOS, okay, is, for all intents and purposes, the open source version of Red Hat Enterprise. Red Hat develops for it. It's all open source. It uses Yum as its package manager. It's pretty easy and pretty lightweight. Now, what I do with CentOS is when I do the install, I actually will install a desktop. So there will be some X there, but I don't put in a bunch of apps for that, just very basic. All I want is for some basic admin stuff, just because I don't like to waste a lot of time with command lines if I can do a click faster. It's all about getting this stuff up quickly, and nobody's going to pay you extra money for your command line skills. So there's that. But anyway, to get started, I went ahead and went to the CentOS project, and I'm going to go to their download page. And here's the thing. Now, if you're going to run Z-Panel, okay, Z-Panel on top of CentOS, I will give you a hint. It's going to want a specific version of CentOS. Like a lot of stuff in open source, it's real sensitive to the versions of libraries and things like that that come with the OS. And if you have the wrong version, zPanel is going to pitch a fit and probably won't run. Right now, and this came out late March, early April, the latest release of it is this 10.1.1, and this is as of July 1st, 2014. Whenever you see this, the thing to remember is find out, whatever platform you're running, find out what platform is compatible with whatever the latest stable release. For this release, the latest stable release that'll work of zPanel on CentOS is CentOS 6.4. There is 6.5 out right now, and it might upgrade itself to that later on, but you want 6.4. Mostly because if you download, and I tried this, if you do 6.5 and you try to install zPanel, zPanel is going to crash. It's just not going to work. It's going to have issues. So match your Linux distro and the version of your Linux distro to your zPanel version. So right now, if you're going to do 10.1.1 and you're going to do going to do CentOS, it wants a 6.4 release, which you see this is the 6.4. You need to find the 6.4, so this is CentOS 6.4, not 6.5. Okay, so we're looking around here, and unfortunately, it's kind of hard to track down. All they have now is 6.5 is the latest release, and there's nothing wrong with 6.5 in and of itself, but you will have a problem with zPanel because there's some incompatibilities there. They upgraded some things that zPanel does not like. So you may have to do a little searching. I just did a Google search, like here. If you do just CentOS 6.4, you'll find that somebody is still going to have it. If you click this, like a link here, live, I don't want a live CD. Let's see. Usually I go with the live DVD ISO, and you just click it and download it, and you see it's downloading. It's about 1.8 gigs. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this because I actually already have this. But you see it's pretty simple. You download 6.4. Once you have that, okay, what you're going to be doing is you're actually going to get, after CentOS is set up and running and happy, you're going to actually be running a command line to let it start downloading. Basically, it's like a apt-get script, and it's going to do the install. Why it fails is because the script that it runs is looking for specific version numbers, and when it doesn't find them, it just crashes. Remember, this is open source, so it's not like a Windows install, so it's a little more sensitive. But knowing that, let's go ahead and open up our VirtualBox. Okay, and I already have one made here, but I'll show you all the steps of basically starting a new one. We'll do a new VirtualBox. We'll call it zPanel CentOS, and it already picked out Red Hat, and that's fine. And it's 64-bit, that's what we want. I like to give about 2.5 gig of memory to it, just so it has plenty. Now, you're going to make a virtual hard drive for it. This is where all your storage files are going to be. I'm going to create one. It says recommended size of 8 gig. I'm not going to do 8 gig. I'm going to do a little bigger. I'm going to use, instead of VDI, I'm going to use the VMDK because that's basically the ESX file format, and I'm looking for something that can be portable so that if I wanted to maybe export this particular VM or virtual machine to say ESX or ESXi, I'll have a little easier time of it than trying to figure out how to translate a VDI image. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, see this dynamic. In my experience, Linux doesn't like its files, its hard drive changing on their own. So I'm going to say a fixed size, and this is where I'm going to set it to about 20 gig. So go ahead and do that. There we go. And now I'm going to create the volume. And we'll take a little break here because this could take a while. Okay, so we're done with our 20 gigabyte partition. And we're going to go ahead and power this thing up, and we're going to attach that ISO, that DVD ISO that we downloaded a little bit ago. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. And of course it'll fail, but that's normal. And you see we get this. So we don't even have to manually set up the CD DVD. I'm going to go ahead and pick my file. So I'll make a virtual drive. And here it is, the CentOS 6.4. I'll say go ahead and start. And we're starting our virtual machine. There we go. Install. And the installation process starts. It's going to find all our goodies. That's fine. Yeah, I got all kinds of little warning messages from there. We don't need to test media. Okay. Now it jumps into a kind of a graphical. We'll say next. Of course, of course. And we just do basic storage devices. And it found our 20 gig. Good. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to call this CentOS-2 dot, and on my local. Now, of course, if you carry this VM to another machine, you'll have to change the host name for things to work correctly. But let's see if we can configure the network here first. Okay, it's finding Ethernet 0. Good. We can edit that. Just like any other server, you really should set a static address. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So give it a /16. Alrighty. And a couple of servers to look at. And we won't worry about search domains. IPv6 I'll leave. Right now we're worried about IPv4 on the local network. Alright, we'll apply that. Close that. Go next. And we'll pick wherever you are. Just get the time zone right. We'll say next. So repick your root password. Doesn't matter. And we'll go ahead and use all space. At least it gives you an option, unlike the Steambox, huh? Okay, never mind. That's an inside joke. Okay. Let it create the partition. Write the changes. And it'll just make everything the way it likes it. It'll make the swap partition and the user partition and the root partition and all that good stuff. Once it does that, it should start installing packages. Yeah, do a minimal desktop. Say next. And the install starts. You can see here, kind of a nifty little feature. If you look down towards the bottom here, where I've got the cursor, you've always got, you could tell what's being read. Like you can see the DVD media or the virtual DVD. You'll see when it gets read. You can see when the hard disk is getting written to. You'll see when the network adapter's up. I kind of like that. I kind of like being in touch with what's going on, even if it is virtualized. Sometimes you don't know if something's going on because you'll just see a blank screen, and if you see some activity on those little icons, it's kind of neat. So, and we'll come back to this in a minute. This takes a little bit, so see you in a few. Okay, looks like we're done. Let's see what happens when we do the reboot. Loading up the very first time. Okay. Okay. Create a user. You've got this option as well. Use a network login if you want. Specify home directory if you want to get into all that, but you don't need to. The time looks good to me. So let's look at that again. There we go. Yeah, it's good to have your time synced over the network. Alrighty. Time is very critical. You know that for any kind of service on any kind of operating system. Yeah, we'll let it do its crash dump. Say yes. Alrighty. Let it reboot to do that kernel dump thing in case something goes wrong. So we could tell them all about it so they can fix something that they probably already fixed in 6.5. Here we go. And you can see from our little monitor there, got hard drive, so it's loading. And we're at our first desktop. Log in. And this has got what I mean by a very Spartan desktop. Alright, so we're on our desktop. You can see that we have a network connection here, and we can actually go ahead and even get on the internet, but I want to check something here. Sometimes the settings don't hold that you actually set when you install the OS, so I'm going to go ahead and edit. Okay. Make sure which one. It's showing a connection. Ethernet 1 is the active. Okay. So we're going to get rid of this so we don't confuse ourselves. And we'll set this to the state it should be. And again, I always recommend a static address. Do /16. And again, this is not Windows, so actually this is wrong as well. Alrighty. We'll put in our DNS servers. Alrighty. Won't bother with the search domain right now. We'll apply that. There you go. So we're hooked up. And watch your little icon on the bottom here. Watch the little network thing. I'm going to go ahead and open a web page. And you see there's activity there. It's a good thing. Now, here's why the big reason I wanted the desktop. Because it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier for us to do our zPanel install. Just do a little search up here. Download. And you see, we're just going to pretty much go to the zPanel install, and we're going to just do a cut and paste here. Okay, now we want to try to get zPanel installed since we've got CentOS up and running. First thing we want to do, let's get a terminal window open. And let's go in as a super user. You can't really install anything in Linux without being root, or at least ask for the root password. Now, here's the deal. zPanel has some doc files here, some how-tos in that. We don't have to worry about removing anything here. We don't have any. This is very basic. Usually this line works for most people. We'll try it. But I'm not holding out much hope. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it did work. It's the default installer line. Usually on CentOS there's a problem with curl. Curl, we actually had to do an install of curl on the CentOS on itself. So now it works, but there are other methods, and I'll show you that in a second here. Well, let's go ahead and just start the install here while we've got it up and looking at it. We're in the Americas and United States. And this is where I am. Say yes. And that's fine. And this is the fully qualified domain name. Now, this is going to have to be, if this is a public-facing server, which it probably won't be, if it's not behind a NAT wall, if you're not directly exposing this server to the internet, then it's going to be natted. So you should be actually kind of okay to use whatever your local is, because you got to talk on a local network anyway. So this could be changed later though, because you're going to have some translation going on anyway. For now, I'm going to leave this as is. Okay, now that it's picked up my public server, which is, it's gone outside my firewall. It found it, so I'm going to say yeah, okay. And I'll let it install. If that external server IP is wrong, you want to fix it now, because it's kind of a pain to go in and change it later. So now it's doing the install. And that's the important thing. You want a bare base, clean CentOS install. You want anything installed. You want it base and clean. If you've got HTTPD or MySQL installed, get rid of them. I already knew that it wasn't in this particular distro when I did the install. I purposely make sure that it didn't load. That's why I wanted a minimal desktop, because it will interfere and it will screw up zPanel. Okay, so it looks like we've got the install done. Go ahead and do it. It takes a while. Just going to restart the server. This one, it took about 40 minutes to download everything. So, and this is the good part, because we've got 6.4 installed. Well, you notice that we didn't update 6.4 at all. We let it, zPanel go ahead and download what it needed and update whatever it wanted, because this whole installation is all about zPanel. That always comes first. And you see we've got CentOS 6.5 now, so it did that update on its own. But we let zPanel grab what it wanted. So if we would have started with 6.5, I can tell you from experience it would have failed miserably. And all kinds of nasty error messages and stuff in Verilog messages and all kinds of horrible things. So let's get back in here. Let's see what we've got. Network is up. First of all, let's see if we can get to zPanel. All right, it's a local host. Good, so it is running. It's just not running locally. Well, it's running locally. Let's try our ready. Oh, yeah, this is the other problem, because it never gave me the opportunity to set the zadmin password. I've got to set it now. So what we'll do, get out of this. So what's supposed to happen is the any install, and you saw that, you're supposed to get the opportunity to set the zadmin password. And there is one set. The problem is we never got to set it. I think that's a bug in the script. This is the third time this has happened to me since I've done this, but not all is lost. There is a procedure here, and you see it's set zadmin, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set that password right now. So we'll open up a terminal. And then we'll try to do this. Set zadmin. And it's in clear text, but I don't care. This isn't in production. There we go. Now we should be able to get in. Let's try. And we're in. And you can see we have our page here. So look at the service status. So you got FTP, SMTP, POP3, all this stuff is running. The database. We haven't created a database yet, but we can. We probably will need to. But see, you have all the administration, all the modules here. Now, one thing I'll say, some of the stuff like FTP config, yeah, because we really don't have one. You'll probably have to do some manual configuration and dig in. This is one of the reasons why I like the desktop, because the FTP configuration file is going to be Pro FTP, and everything's under zPanel. In fact, let's go look at that now. This is the other thing I like to have here. Look at the file browser. Now for testing, 127.0.0.1 is always going to work on the local VM or the local virtual machine when you're testing this on the local CentOS OS install. That's the default loopback address. Now, if you're going to have this thing again sitting out there in public, you're going to have that public address in there, which was, you saw for mine was 72 whatever. For an internal NetApp, you're going to need to have local access, mostly because you're probably coming through a firewall that's going to have to pass the traffic through it to a local server, unless you're doing a DMZ or something like that, which I don't know. Anyway, here I've set the address here, and what I want to do is I want to see if this thing works outside of the default loopback. So I'm going to get out of my VirtualBox, which that's the right control key by default. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ping this address. Good. So I'm getting a reply back. Now this is not in the VM. This is just my normal desktop. Let's see if I can get the web page up. Before I do that, let's get this extra thing out of here. So what I'll do is I'll bring up a browser, put in the address. Oh, I put in the wrong address. There we go. And it's working. We can see our little admin. This is outside of the VM. This is just how someone would be logging in remotely to use it. And there we are. We're in. Now we can do whatever we want to do. We can add domains. We could set up FTP users, which would be right here with FTP accounts. You can tie FTP accounts to certain domains so that when people FTP'd in, they're working right within the domain. I don't get into reseller and stuff like that. I pretty much just set the domains. I pretty much use this for, this is going to be primary domain. This is going to be people who aren't going to be reselling any subdomains. So now what's important to note here is when you set this thing up and you get this up and running, and it's a hard thing for some people to understand. You're either going to use the default, the external IP that will pass through your NAT or firewall to get to this server for management, to actually get to zPanel, or you're going to have to set up something in a domain and on the internet, something .com, .net, whatever, and point at that IP, but it has to be or should be a domain that you're not trying to manage. If you're managing 4 or 5 different domains, you know, on the zPanel install, you really should pick another domain that isn't within that managed realm, because it's just going to give you all kinds of pain. Because this is basically set up with host headers. You don't do port forwarding or anything like that to get into to get into any of the domains you're hosting, any of the websites that may be on here. That's way old school anyway. You know, if you have test.com out there and you decide that your managing to be test.com, you're going to keep probably bringing up the test.com website instead of getting to the zPanel page, because it's going to pick it up and say, oh, that's for my domains I'm managing, and go right there. So it has to be something outside of that range. People talk about they could do subdomains and stuff like that. I haven't seen it work all that well. For one thing, it still exposes the IP, so you're just best off using a separate domain that isn't managed by any of the others. You know, you're just kind of asking for trouble anyway, because do you really want your admin for the entire server to be a subdomain of one of the servers one of the domains you're hosting? I don't think that's a great idea. So anyway, that's zPanel. That's the install. And you can see it's not too hard. I can start dropping directories left and right if I wanted to. In fact, I can, as I close, I'll actually show you. No, we won't do that. We'll just minimize it. I can actually show you a site that is currently in production. It's actually running on a production zPanel. We'll skip that. You can see this site is completely running, and it was actually imported from an old site. See, there's stuff here. Yeah, I know it's an ugly website, but who cares? So, see, it works. And if I wanted to actually get into that, to get to the page, I can actually get into it using another domain that I have set up that goes right to the zPanel login. So anyway, that's about it. It's a little jumpy. We had a few bumps in the road, but you will have a few bumps in the road with this. I have not had a straightforward, easy install of this yet. With the having to do the curl installation, that kind of thing. If the curl installation doesn't work, there's the zPanel documentation that shows you an alternate way of doing it, which is basically a wget command, which will start the install for you without curl. So anyway, that's about it. Now you've seen what it's like. Go try it for yourself. Have a good one. I'm out.